Do you write shit dialogue, or do you write amazing dialogue? Either way, this video will have something for you. Today I'll be talking about what I learned from writing a 73-page feature film featuring entirely dialogue. I'll also talk about the mistakes I made in my 5 previous films. So the first thing you gotta do is know your characters. This is really the most important thing it comes down to, because each character that you're writing about has their own unique voice. It's not purely shaped by their personality, but also their way of speaking. Where are they from? Where have they grown up? All these things play into the character they are and how they talk and the dynamics of dialogue. So something you can do is actually to just observe people talking. Base the way your characters talk on different people, because it becomes a lot easier to imagine these characters if you're just starting out. A way to test if you know your characters is to just cover up their names and see if you can still tell who's talking. The second thing is you have to choose a style. If it's realistic, if it's poetic or stylistic, or a combination, you have to be consistent with your style. Your style basically defines the way you write. It gives consistency and transports the audience to this new world a new believable world that you've created. And if you're changing the way you're writing halfway through, it will feel really off and the audience might lose interest or get confused and understand why you're making this change. If you decide to write really stylistic one way, like Tarantino or Godard or something like that, and then you suddenly switch to writing extremely realistic and dense dialogue, it can feel really off. So you have to make sure that you are developing a style while you're writing, which you will naturally do as long as you get writing. Just make sure to be consistent, because otherwise it will feel messy. Number 3 is to humble yourself. Don't constantly be trying to show off with dialogue. It comes off as sometimes a little bit pretentious. If you're putting all these big words and like poetic phrases, okay, you know what, I can't say shit about that. Still, I can criticize myself. If you're trying to be poetic all the time, unless it is of course stylistic, it's not realistic, and sometimes the characters can become too similar, too boring, and it just sounds like you trying to show off. Especially if it does not at all match the character you're creating. Like for example, if there was a 10-year-old country girl, maybe from Sweden, and she was saying this line: "Every time I close my eyes, I felt that I was foreshadowing my approaching demise." Or something like, "Turning to solitude has given me space to ponder." That does not make sense. A Swedish country girl who's 10 years old will not be saying that. She won't even be speaking English. Death has become a reflection and reminder of what must be lived. No, it doesn't work, because I wrote these for a 50-year-old man who's talking about his death. It makes sense, that fits the character. I purposely wrote his character so I can sound poetic. You know, that's what you gotta do if you want to be this stylistic. Fourth thing is be concise. You gotta show, don't tell. Unless the character is purposefully blabbering, like it's part of their character, because maybe they're nervous or they're annoying, we don't need every detail to be said. In a feature-length film, you only have 1 or 2 hours to keep the attention of the audience and to tell a long, winding story. And so you gotta keep it concise with the audience and show, don't tell, because you want the audience to be doing some thinking and you want to keep it interesting for the audience. Do not ever tell us stuff that we do not need to know. We do not care, okay? We don't care. Hey, it's Editing Rex. I totally forgot to film the scene, so you're gonna get it right now. Okay, I'm gonna go to the beach in 5 minutes. Okay, I'll see you when you get back in a few hours. Yeah, I really hope I see Melissa. I haven't seen her in years, and I really miss her because she's one of my closest friends. For a scene like this, all you have to do is show, don't tell. Don't need the character to be saying that they're going to the beach at all, because we can just cut to them at the beach and we will have the whole picture in our head. It's a wasted 5 minutes of blabbering. The audience can figure stuff out, and they like figuring stuff out. It keeps them engaged. It keeps your audiences watching. Number 5 is pauses. The audience always needs moments to sit with what they've just heard. It's like a punctuation, a moment of emphasis where they can finally breathe. And we aren't normally consistently shoving information down our throats, besides what we're doing now with phones and all that. But normally when we talk in a conversation, we're not trying to shove information down each other's throats. There are natural pauses, natural silences. We should embrace them and accept them because they're beautiful. It's a moment to take in what you've just heard, and we don't need to be talking all the time, and I think that should be reflected in dialogue. But another function that pauses also have are subtext. They can tell us exactly what a character is thinking, or what the whole mood or I guess vibe of the situation is based on the pauses that are there. Okay, so in this scene, Emma and Lena are having one of their first conversations before they fall in love. So the pause here is to suggest that there is a sense of awkwardness when they first meet, kind of this tension that's building, and that's the function of the pause. It does more than just give a gap. It lets the audience kind of analyze what's going on. Number 6 is subtext. Subtext is something you hear about from all the dialogue YouTube and all the film YouTube channels, but it is so freaking important. I didn't realize until I made this film, the feature film I'm working on. Subtext can be created through action, dialogue, pauses, all of that. But in order to keep the audience engaged and to keep them thinking and understanding what's going on, you gotta have subtext, because that is how people talk. People talk in code. We don't say always what we mean. Unless, of course, the character is one of those people who says exactly what they mean all the time. So here's an example from Brothers of what not to do. So here Axel asks, "Do you know why we still live with Dad?" And Eric responds, "Mom doesn't have enough money to move on." So here there's zero subtext. There's There's zero thinking the audience has to do. Plain flat out, he says what's going on. That's the whole conflict of the story. You don't want to do this. This is obviously very weak writing. So in this scene, sorry about the page cut, but there is subtext. Here Emma says, saying yes isn't impolite. What do you really want? Which kind of suggests that Lena might want Emma. You know, there's a little bit of hidden subtext and foreshadowing what might happen in the film. In this scene, basically, Eric is this really sleazy douchebag, and he's trying to get Lena, and he's talking really weird, fake deep stuff, and she's like, thanks. Like, it's very obvious that she's not interested at all, and she thinks she's aware of how stupid it is, pretending, trying to be polite because that's the kind of character she is. But still, it suggests she definitely is not interested in this guy. Seventh thing is purpose. You gotta consider, what is the purpose of this scene? Why is it here? How is it driving the narrative forward? If you can't answer those questions, you're not gonna have a good scene. You have to think about what are the goals of each of these characters and how do they conflict. Especially if you're writing a conflict scene, you have to know what do each of these characters want, and then you have to express that through dialogue and also through subtext, of course. Dialogue always serves a function. It involves sharing information between characters or with the audience. Number 8 is to just freaking write it. Just sit down and start writing. Don't nitpick at the beginning. You just have to write. Just do a stream of consciousness writing. It won't be perfect, but you know, when you edit, then you can consider these rules and stuff, and try to keep these rules in the back of your head, or try to keep these tips in the back of your head. If you nitpick every line as you're writing it and spend a few minutes on each line as you're doing it, it will not be good. It will feel so artificial, constructed, and fake, which is something kind of a pet peeve of mine with a lot of dialogue today in Hollywood movies. It's just so unnatural. No one would ever say those things, and it's so clear that the dialogue is just to pass information, which is the purpose of dialogue, but I feel like dialogue is also beautiful. If it makes up the majority of the film, you know, we should enjoy listening to it. Anyways, lost track. Just write. Don't overthink. Just get something on the page. This is something I can't stress enough to writers. Just freaking do it. Sit down, write, give yourself time. All these rules can be altered as you see fit, because of course film isn't a science, but it is in fact an art. But you have to learn the rules before you can break them. And I feel like this is a pretty good conclusion of these wonderful rules. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Check out my other videos about film if you're interested to get better as a filmmaker. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.